She only wanted a fair chance to prove herself. But instead of encouragement, she was met with laughter, cruel jokes, and whispered insults. A young black girl, standing in front of a manager who saw her skin before her skills. What happened next wasn't just humiliation, it was a moment designed to break her spirit. But life had other plans, and the tables were about to turn in ways no one could imagine. How could one man's arrogance unleash a truth powerful enough to silence an entire room? For most people, it was just another shift, another busy day where faces blurred into the crowd. But for Maya, it was more than that. She was young, ambitious, and determined to prove herself. Every morning, she woke up early, pressed her uniform neatly, and walked into that store with hope in her heart. She dreamed of building a better future, one where hard work would finally be recognized. Maya wasn't perfect. She was still learning, still adjusting, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. Customers often noticed her kindness, the way she greeted them with a genuine smile even when the hours were long. To her, this job wasn't just a paycheck. It was a stepping stone, a chance to show she was capable of so much more. But behind the counters and polished floors, there were those who didn't see her dedication. They didn't see the late nights she spent practicing, or the courage it took just to keep showing up. Instead, they saw only her skin, her youth, and their own prejudices staring back at them. And soon, one person's cruelty would put her patience and her spirit to the ultimate test. Maya had been careful all morning, making sure every item was stacked neatly, every receipt handed with a smile. But no matter how hard she tried, the manager's eyes never softened. He watched her every move, waiting for the smallest slip. It started with little things. A sarcastic remark when she placed a box down too slowly, a mocking laugh when she stumbled over a number at the register. At first, she tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just having a bad day. Maybe she was overthinking. But then the words sharpened. Got balance? I'll pay double if you don't drop it this time, he sneered, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The customers chuckled awkwardly, not knowing whether to laugh or look away. Maya's cheeks burned, but she stayed silent. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Still, the taunts didn't stop. Every mistake, real or imagined, became an opportunity for him to put her down. He rolled his eyes when she asked a question, exaggerated her movements in front of others, even whispered to another employee while pointing at her. Each jab cut deeper than the last. Maya's hands began to tremble as she worked, not because she was incapable, but because the weight of constant humiliation pressed against her chest. She remembered her mother's words, "Keep your head high, don't let them see you break." So she forced herself to keep going, even when her throat tightened with unshed tears. But the manager wasn't finished. When a tray slipped slightly in her hand, he smirked, clapping his hands slowly. "Careful now. Wouldn't want you to embarrass yourself again." His voice dripped with sarcasm, each syllable designed to draw blood. The room grew tense. Some employees looked down, pretending not to hear. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Yet no one spoke up. Silence became its own form of cruelty, and just when Maya thought the moment couldn't grow any worse, he leaned in closer, lowering his voice, but making sure others could still catch it. "This is why people like you never last. Can't handle real responsibility?" The words struck like a slap, heavy and humiliating. Maya felt her chest tighten, her breath shallow. She wanted to defend herself, to shout that she was capable, that she deserved respect, but the fear of losing everything chained her tongue. Still, something in her shifted. Beneath the hurt, a fire began to stir. The laughter, the whispers, the sneers, they wouldn't define her. And though she didn't yet know it, the very moment meant to break her would soon unravel into a truth that none of them could have seen coming, because Maya was not who they thought she was. And soon the manager's cruelty would collide with a revelation that would leave him speechless. The manager's voice echoed through the store, sharp and dripping with contempt. "Maybe you should stick to something simpler," he mocked, pointing at the tray still trembling in Maya's hands. Customers turned their heads. Employees froze mid-task. All eyes landed on her, and for a moment, the world seemed to close in. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The humiliation was unbearable. His words weren't just insults, they were daggers meant to strip away her worth, to remind her she was small, powerless, and out of place. She could feel the sting of tears pressing behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Then, the final blow. With a cruel grin, he leaned closer and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is exactly why people like you never rise above their station." The room went silent. The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Maya's hands clenched at her sides, every muscle screaming to fight back. To scream, to walk out, but her future, her dignity, her very survival felt tied to this single moment. Her heart raced as she glanced at the customers, some uncomfortable, some whispering, some shaking their heads in quiet disapproval. But no one spoke. No one defended her. She stood alone in a sea of silence, trapped between fear and fury, and then the sound of footsteps, steady, purposeful, cutting through the tension like a drumbeat. Everyone turned toward the entrance as a man walked in, his presence commanding, his gaze locked on the scene unfolding. Maya's chest tightened. She knew that walk. She knew that face. It was her father, and in that instant, the balance of power in the room shifted. Though the manager didn't yet realize, the moment Maya's father stepped forward, the atmosphere shifted. The manager, still smirking, had no idea that the man he was about to dismiss was the very person who signed his paycheck. The whispers began almost immediately. Employees leaning in, customers exchanging glances, a hush falling over the room as realizations spread. Maya's father didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone carried weight. But when he finally spoke, the words cut sharper than any insult the manager had thrown. Calm, firm, and undeniable, he made it clear that Maya was not just his daughter. She was an employee deserving of the respect every worker should have. And the man who had mocked her? He had not just failed at leadership. He had revealed the ugliness that still lingers in places where equality should be non-negotiable. The manager's bravado crumbled. His laughter vanished. In its place was silence, the kind that comes when the truth is laid bare and there's nowhere left to hide. For Maya, the moment wasn't just vindication. It was proof that the strength her mother told her to carry would always matter, even when the world tried to dim it. But it was also a reminder of a harsher reality, that without her father's presence, her story might have ended differently. And that is the deeper truth. Racism doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it hides in the jokes, the smirks, the subtle humiliations designed to make someone feel less than human. But every one of those moments leaves scars. So the question remains, how many more Mayas will it take before respect and dignity are given freely? Not because of who stands behind them, but because of who they are?